Everyone wants to keep thinking that humans are so unique. They're different, separate. And that was the mistake. That was in the history of religion. That's where religion went wrong. Any religion that, just look at them, that said humans are special and separate from the animals. Humans are different. And on top of it, see this God, well, it's a human. We're going to make up something because we don't know what's going on. We don't know what a flood is. We don't know what an earthquake was. We don't know what diseases are. We don't know much about anything. There must be somebody. There must be some reason. And so they made it up and said, well, there is. There is a big, and because it was a male-dominant society, they said the God was male. Now, plenty of religions, as you know through history, have had female entities as well. Well, they're in there. And they have their special characteristics as too. And all of it is about defining things that you don't know. And saying, well, they caused it. These gods. And by doing that, you always separate it out in that view of religion and said, see, the God being a human form, but then we're special, separate. And that got all sorts of distortions going about your relationship to the very planet that sustains you. That gives you all your food and water. That gives you all your beautiful air that you can naturally have. That keeps you every second of your life breathing. Well, wait a minute. See, they missed the point. You're completely interdependent with this planet and all the species on here. All species are aware of being alive. It's just that they're in the form that they have. A cat's a cat. A dog is a dog. An elephant is an elephant. A grizzly bear is a grizzly bear. As well as a squirrel, a leopard, a tiger, a deer, a bird, on and on. They're all aware, just like you, of being alive. There's awareness there. Clear, correct, awake, awareness. And that awareness has in itself, and this is the missed step of those old Dark Age religions. All those religions miss the correct view. And they separated out and said, we're separate, dominant. Well, the dinosaurs were dominant over this planet because of situations and whatnot for over 100 million years. Humans have nowhere reached that time frame at all. And the dinosaurs, after 50 million years of being dominant, after 70 million years of being dominant, if they had a dinosaur historian, looking at and saying over the species and categorizing things and looking at the history, well, dinosaur historians would be quite correct to say, well, geez, folks, we are really the best. We're separate. We're the best. We're dominant. And look at our history. We've been here a hell of a long time. And it looks like we can be here forever. We're eternal. Well, sure, we're born here, live for some duration, and die here. But we keep going. And we've already been here 50 million, 60 million, 70 million. On and on. Oops. things change. Things can change. And point out to the dinosaur, to species, you're just another species. You're just another living entity on this planet for a while. And you've been able to survive and thrive as much as you integrate and recognize your interdependence with everything that's provided by this planet. So, folks, climate, environment, these are major natural concerns for humans, as well for all species. Of course, other species, they didn't have to worry about it, because they weren't poisoning the whole planet with plastic. They weren't dumping hundreds of thousands of tons of toxins into their atmosphere. They weren't dumping garbage of all sorts of types into their water. That's really stupid. Humans are showing, for all their vaunted arrogance of being special, humans are showing themselves to be really stupid at decision-making, their economics. And humans are also getting there at being really stupid, of being, hey, you're overpopulating yourself. You got billions, right now, you got billions of people who are suffering in poverty from the lack of birth control throughout the society. You can't keep having babies, like those Christian wackos keep telling you. They want to restrict women from making a decision to have babies, or have an abortion, or have birth control. Oh, they don't want that. Or these Christian lunatics, Religion. Look at all the way through South America, Latin America. Overpopulation. Poverty. Economic collapse. Well, that's pretty stupid. You claim to be humans, they claim to be more intelligent than that. They can't figure that one out? What's the impediment? Well, this fantasy world they created, about religion, and oh boy, geez, if you don't bring in this entity into the world, this entity is never going to be there. No, that's not how it works. There's always, as you see through history, as you see through humanity, there is always the chance of that birth, and that birth, and that person. And if that person, happens because of the male and females making their genes merge together and all that stuff, getting the pregnancy and all that stuff, there's as far as you need to go. Because the potential is always there. Between this man and this woman, they're going to have sex, they're going to combine a sperm and an egg, and then off it'll go again. It's always there. But overpopulation and just driving yourselves into needless poverty and desperation is ignorance. And religion is the one that's enforcing that ignorance. You can have birth control, and it'll be just fine. And you'll relieve your fellow humans, and even the planet, of a lot of needless suffering. And carry on. And we'll still have Einsteins, we'll still have Michael Jacksons, we'll still have Smokey Robinsons, we'll still have Carl Sagans. We still will. It'll happen. And because we're more accurately, intelligently organized, and on a humane basis, we'll encourage it to happen. See, everybody gets so hysterical from things that you got to say, well, that was your lesson from history. You learn because you went through the gross stupidity and unbelievable vileness of a Nazis. That from then on you should recognize. You learn that from history. You learn that you see that type of stupidity and racism and segregation. And you go, no, that ain't going to happen. You learn from the gross stupidity and vile and brutality, ignorance of America's Confederacy and slavery. The whole system of slavery, folks. And you say, no, that ain't going to happen again. Those were wrong. That isn't what humanity is going to do. You learn from Stalin, Pol Pot's, as well as learning from Nixon's and corporate criminals, cocaine traffickers like Reagan, and vast criminal fraud like Trump and Bush Cheney. In other words, the whole Republican Party. And you learn and say, no, not going to do that again, not going to allow that again. We learn that lesson. And the same is even in religion. You learn and say, wait a minute, that's founded. How are you justifying this repression of women? How are you justifying this repression of homosexuals? How are you justifying the violence against people who aren't part of your religion? Well, it's in our book. A book of myths written by dumb people from 2,000 years ago who didn't know anything and were just trying to have social control. And they made up all these stories, made up these myths to justify it. And here, 2,000 years ago, you're still trying to tell us, well, see, our creation myth. Wait a minute. There isn't any creation myth that's valid in the 21st century. It's a myth. It's a fantasy. All these stories are nothing but fantasies, myths, fabrications of their little book. And they're being used to justify repression. They become an instrument of repression. When, religion is supposed to be equal rights, mutual benefit, cooperation, attention to the planet that sustains you. So, you come around, you wake up over time, over, intellectual evolution. And you look at what you've been, what you know, and also their history. You look at the economics of disaster and poison and pollution and Trump and Republican poison and pollution and criminals of all types getting by with making thousands and millions of dollars a year because of religious-based prohibitions. You look at the actual facts. You actually look. And you see, we can't keep doing that anymore. That's a failure. That's a fraud. You cut it off. You wake up. You've woken up. And many, many of you have. You've become 21st century citizens. You're aware of all this stuff and you know it makes sense and you get it. You're there. And now you just got to just clear out the garbage. And you block off the efforts to try and continue in the disasters and frauds and criminalities of the past. And you come into the 21st century that you fully are. So you're not bogged down with all that garbage and weight and myth and delusion and repression and lies of the past. You stand in the light, finally, of your clarity, of your wisdom, of your recognition of your interdependence on this planet. In your 21st century,